Africa and the world, thank you for joining us on the fresh dose of Talking Point over your Pan-African channel for you Media Africa. We apologize for the late start, and today, in the course of this edition, we shall be focusing on the upcoming elections built for 2025 in Cameroon, where the nation is less than a year to the presidential polls and general elections slated for February 2025. As voters' registration intensifies across the national territory, presidential, municipal and legislative aspirants get up their efforts, while political moves are ongoing. The nation's elections promises to shape the country's future. For several decades, Cameroon has grappled with multiple crises across social, economic and political fronts. Many citizens are hopeful that these upcoming elections will usher in a change of leadership, bringing much needed transformation. Join us with our panel of guests as we unravel today's topic of discussion in the course of today's program, Talking Points. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome on board. Stay with us. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this new edition of Talking Point over For You Media Africa. You're watching us on For You Television, listening to us over the airways of FM 96.3. This is another edition of Talking Point, where in today's edition we pick interest in the upcoming elections built for 2025 in Cameroon. To evoke this topic of discussion, we've been joined by Dr. Barrister ASONG KHUMBAH, who is a presidential aspirant for the upcoming elections 2025 independent candidate. Greetings to you, sir. Thank you for honoring today's invitation. We're equally been joined by HILARY TITA TEBIT, who is a political analyst, joining us here from Cameroon. Greetings to you, sir. You're welcome on board.
Greetings to you, Sharon, and greetings to Dr. ASONG. Thank you for the invite, and I'm looking forward for productive share as far as elections Cameroon is concerned, or the 2025 election in Cameroon is concerned. Thank you for the invite.
Exactly. This topic comes just in hand as the nation gears up for elections, general elections slated for 2025. Like we mentioned in our preamble, the efforts have been intensified across the national territory as Cameroonians have been called to register on the voters' registration list ahead of these elections built for 2025. Now, to kickstart with you, Dr. ASONG, now, it's worth noting that there is intensification across the national territory ahead of elections, but then as a presidential aspirant, and not just a presidential aspirant, but as a Cameroonian, so to say, how would you rate the political landscape across the national territory?
Well, thanks very much for that question. What I would like to say is that it's very clear, it's material that change is really required in Cameroon today. So Cameroon is going through one of its worst periods since independence, and that's because for over 65 years now we have just had two presidents. The first who made 25 years and who actually brought some sort of development. But unfortunately, the second, who is still on seat today, has made about 40 years in power. And through his reign, which is still ongoing now, we have faced so many problems on every sector of development, whether it be the economy, which took great hits with an economic crisis, with inflation, with very high standards of living. We have the health sector, which is also being affected due to the fact that most Cameroonians are having difficulties to have access to good health care, and quality healthcare. We have our education, which is the worst today, even though most Cameroonians have access to education, but unfortunately, the education which is being provided for our young ones doesn't permit them to be able to create jobs or to have access to jobs. So more to that, we have issues with the violations of women's rights. We have today more cases of feminicides, and all of these things show that the political atmosphere in Cameroon is at its worst. And so, of course, based on all these difficulties and problems which Cameroonians face on a daily basis, it's certain and imperative that change is being desired. So that's why we see today so many Cameroonians are going out there, encouraging others to go and register on their electoral list, because at the end of the day, the only way in which we can come out from everything we are going through today, all the difficulties we are going through today, is through the ballot box. So the ballot box is actually the power which the population has to be able to take control of governance and to express democracy in its perfection. So today, Cameroonians are being more and more conscious of the fact that they must get involved in the political affairs of Cameroon, and through that they will be able to bring the necessary change, move the regime which is in place today, and put in place one which will actually seek their own interests, and that will encourage durable or sustainable development for future generations.
Like you mentioned, the ballot box is the future, not just of Cameroon's, it's not just the future of Cameroon, but of course the future of every African nation, and that cuts across the globe as well. Now over to you, Hilary Tita, being a political analyst here based in Cameroon, how would you rate, or how do you analyze the current political landscape ahead of the upcoming elections, given that politicians over the years are actually gearing up for elections, like is the case with most African countries, one which is going to test the level of democracy across the nation?
I think there has been an increase in political mobilization. People are becoming even more and more aware of their responsibilities as Cameroonians to participate in the electoral processes. When we look at the number of people from the outing of the chairman of the LECAM body, he was marveled at the number of people that has registered on the electoral list. And that is a positive move towards people, towards a change. Seeing people that are now aware, unlike they used to exercise electoral apathy in the past, like during the 2018 elections where the voters turnout was very low. I think looking at the rate at which the registration is going on, and looking at the rate at which political parties are mobilizing Cameroonians to register on the electoral list, I think it's a positive move. There is some move on the ground, yeah.
Hilary Tita, please, are you with us?
Yes.
Hilary Tita,
Okay.
are you with us? Or if we are unable to get you due to some connection discrepancies, we shall be hoping that you get back to us to continue today's edition. Okay, kindly proceed with your contribution.
Okay. I was saying that looking at the rate at which voters registration is going on the ground, it is a clear indication that Cameroonians are becoming even more and more aware of their responsibility to participate as citizens of Cameroon. They cannot be expecting change and will not want to participate in the elections. I think I wish to equally applaud the efforts of political parties. They've been on the field as well, mobilizing and educating Cameroonians on the need to participate in elections. Civil societies as well have been playing their own role And I believe that with this, there is some hope that 2025 elections can bring some change in Cameroon, that there could be a transition in 2025. Well, in terms of looking at how elections have been going in Cameroon, the narrative that even when you vote, your votes are the one who is to win has already been known. I think people today have shown those narratives that causes voters apathy, that causes people to get fed up, that causes people to be passive about electoral processes. I think the Cameroonians today are now becoming even more aware of their responsibilities as Cameroonians to participate in electoral processes. And that's my observation so far as registration and political mobilization is concerned with this upcoming 2025 elections in Cameroon.
Absolutely. The youths are the future of now and, of course, the future of tomorrow. Now, up to you, Dr. ASONG. You're a youth leader and, of course, you champion youth in politics here in Cameroon. Now, given that we are championing for the Africa we want, and that ties down to actually the Cameroonian context. Now, with that in mind, it's often said that change begins with us. Change begins with the little moves that we make. I remember the president of Pews, for instance, he mentioned that if youths do not take action, for instance, they might face or get to a point where others might take that action, but the action might not be what they wanted. Now, with this in mind, being the leader of youth in politics, would you say, or do you think that these upcoming elections built for 2025 can actually bring about the change that Cameroonians are waiting for?
It's worth noting that the youth in every country represents its active force. So there is practically no nation in this world that can develop without the active participation of its youths. But what we are facing today in Cameroon is that we have an administration or a government that has decided to crush the future of the youths. Why do I say so? I say so because today it's very sad to realize that our government has permitted people who are 60 years old, 70 years old to call themselves youths. So I think it's very common amongst Cameroonians today, and you hear people in the ruling party telling others that they are young, whereas most of them are 60 years old, 70 years old. So that's an issue. On the other hand, we realize that there is a lot of unemployment today, and those who are being mostly affected by these high unemployment rates are youths. So if the political environment and our administration doesn't provide youths with jobs, how would they participate in the development of our country? Moreover, the academic system or the educational system we have in Cameroon today does not train youths to be able to express themselves, to be creative, and to be original. So all of these things have led to youths being in one way or the other prevented from actually taking part actively in the political affairs and governance of our state today. When you look at our different state organs, whether it be the executive, most of our leaders are above 50 years. When you look at the National Assembly, you can actually pinpoint those who are less than 35 years old. So we are being degraded to the point where in Cameroon, the definition of being a youth goes right up to 60 years, whereas it should be all those who are less than 35 years. And I strongly believe that that's the reason why, according to the Constitution of Cameroon, you become eligible to take part in presidential elections when you are 35 years old and above. So we realize then that the governance system we have today does not put the youth at the center of its governance system, and as such we are actually seeing today that development is extremely far-fetched. And it is far-fetched today because youth are not taking part actively in the matters of the state. So, of course, 2025 is an opportunity for the youths to stand up, to say that no, this is our time, to change their mindset, and to realize that the future of Cameroon lies in their hands. And the continuity of our state will only be able to be achieved if the youths decide to say, it's our time to change things. Unfortunately, today, we have about 4 generations, and I think that those who are between 20 and 35 represent the 3rd generation, because we have a generation above 70.
Absolutely.
We have another generation between 70 and 40. Then there's another one between 40, 20 and below. And you see, each generation has been pushing over change to the next generation. Like our parents said, oh, you know, we could really bring change because you know, we're living in a system where there was a military rule, dictatorship, so we can't, we could not really do anything. So that's why we are suffering today. So it's for you guys to bring change. And what is most shocking today is that some youths believe that change cannot come. So they are still repeating the same errors of their fathers, and that is to transfer change to the next generation. But what I'm trying to say here today is we must stop this trend. We must believe in ourselves. We must stand up, and it does not take much. It's just being conscious of the fact that the future of Cameroon, or the tomorrow of Cameroon, lies in our hands, and we have a part to play, as my co-panelist earlier on said. And this part we have to play, or this responsibility we have, is indispensable. Because if our parents didn't do what was necessary, and that is why we are suffering today as youths, then it certainly means that if we don't do anything about it, the next generation will suffer more. And certainly,
yes,
change will be very, very far-fetched.
You mentioned that the youth actually, they constitute a large number of Cameroon's population. We're looking at the youth under 40 that are about 60% of Cameroon's population. Meanwhile, about 30 or close to 30 of those that are between the age of 21 to 35. Now, with this, if we keep being skeptical about who is going to bring about change, if the youths, for instance, keep shying away from taking part in governing systems and decision making in Cameroon, do you think that this change we're actually anticipating for is actually to become a reality?
Well, if the youths don't want to take part in the political affairs of Cameroon, then automatically change will be impossible. Because we are looking at those who actually have all the ideas. They have the workforce, they have the courage, they are ready to take the risk, they have the energy to work. Then if this group of people who actually have everything necessary to bring development in Cameroon don't take part in political affairs, then of course we shouldn't expect those who are old and who are already having issues with their physical health and their mental health to bring the change that we are desiring. So I think that those between 21 and 40 are actually those who will be able to bring in the new Cameroon that will have its true independence, will portray true unity, will portray peace, and that will bring in national integration so that we can work hand in hand to bring change in Cameroon. You know, today Cameroon is having a lot of issues because Cameroon has been actually affected by issues such as corruption, such as tribalism, favoritism, and all the like. And we know these things are not things of our generation. Our generation didn't start this. This started with the previous or the earlier generations.
Yes.
And we are those suffering from it because we don't really know how to deal with it. Most youths between 21 and 40 don't know how to corrupt. Actually, they are being forced to do that. And that is the reason why we are that generation that can bring change, because there are certain things we have been seeing and we are already saying no to them. We are saying no to bad governance. We are saying no to injustice. We are saying no to all the malice which is being conducted by the system we have in place.
Okay, I'll be coming back to you, just hanging with that thought. Back to you, Hilary Tita. Given you are a member of the civil society here in Cameroon, you listen to your co-panelists, but then what role do the leaders of the civil society have to play when it comes to championing change? Like we mentioned during our preamble, and as we've been mentioning so far, Cameroon is supposed to hold elections come 2025. So how does the civil society come in? How can they champion that change? And do you believe that these upcoming elections will actually bring about change in the country?
So these upcoming elections will actually bring change in the country, Cameroon, and it may not bring the change that we want as well. It will bring the change in the sense that, because the reason I say it will bring the change, but it may not bring the change that we want, because people are so much focused about the presidential elections. They forget about the municipal elections, the regional councils elections, and the parliamentary elections. These are equally important elections that are going to take place in Cameroon. They are even more important than the presidential election, because policies for the common people to feel the impact of state policies, it's at the grassroots level, and it starts with those local councils, start with local government. Talking about the role of the civil society, of course, given their neutrality in their activities, people tend to listen to them more. They have a very important role. When you look at the electoral code, to appoint members of the electoral board, the civil society must equally be consulted. That is to tell you that the civil society has a very important role to play as far as electoral processes are concerned. Now, evaluating the work that the civil society's leaders and members have been doing so far as 2025 elections in Cameroon are concerned, you will see them on the field. When you take a cursory look on social media platforms, you will see the work they have been doing on the field to mobilize the Cameroonian population, to educate the Cameroonian population. You see them even on media platforms, educating, dishing out political knowledge. This is the work the civil society is supposed to do. Governance in Cameroon can be influenced by civil society. Development in Cameroon equally can be influenced by civil society, and I think that the civil society in Cameroon is doing a great job, given the tense political atmosphere that we find ourselves, with the threats that keep coming from left and right against those who are actively mobilizing and calling on Cameroonians to register in order to be eligible to participate in the 2025 elections. I think that the elections in Cameroon will bring change. Well, it all depends on Cameroonians if they are ready for that change. How many out of the approximate 28 million or approximate 15 million potential voters in Cameroon, how many of us in Cameroon today already have a voter's card? Or are we still praying for the change? Are we still waiting for the change? Are we waiting for some external body to come and bring us the change? Well, I am an advocate of democracy. I do not believe in coup d'etat. I do not believe in forceful seizure of power. And the 2025 is that ideal opportunity for Cameroonians to create that change. So the change in 2025 is dependent upon Cameroonians. If they wish to see change, then they must go in for the change, act in order to achieve that change. It is not about sitting down and praying. It is not about sitting down and complaining. It is not about sitting down and criticizing. It is about going to the poll. It is about going to any election office or post to register, and it is about going to the poll to vote and secure your vote. I think that the change is feasible. We just need a little effort as Cameroonians of this change.
Thank you so much, Hilary. Thank you so much, Hilary TITA. And that is a very pertinent question there. Are Cameroonians actually ready for this change that is coming? Now, Dr. Asong, you mentioned earlier that the Cameroonian political system is actually a very tense one. And of course, Cameroonians, including the youth and political actors, will have to get up intensely for them to be able to champion the change they want in the upcoming elections. Now, speaking of the political system, do you think, because we are expecting change, not just in the political aspects, but we're equally expecting change at the social, economic, political, and other cultural, why not, aspects of the country? Now, how can Cameroon revamp its political system to champion that change we're talking about?
Well, that's a very complex one. It's a very complex one because, you know, today Cameroon is facing some sort of identity crisis, and we don't really know what political system or regime really suits our nation. And that's because when you look at pre-colonial times, colonial times, we realize that Cameroon was being colonized by the Germans, and later on when France, Britain won the First World War, they took over the territories of, or they were being granted trusteeship over the German territories by the League of Nations. And from that moment, Cameroon was being divided into two. There was a part which was being governed by the French colonial master, and there was another part being governed by the British colonial master, so-called Southern Cameroon, and the French part called West Cameroons. So later on, those in the Southern Cameroons decided that they won't have their independence with Nigeria, but they would actually seek their own independence with the French Cameroon or West Cameroon. And that is because from an ethnic and cultural point of view, the Cameroonians in the Southern Cameroons actually saw themselves being more linked to their French brothers in a cultural point of view or aspect, in the sense that when you look at the Southern Cameroons today, those in the Northwest were actually semi-Bantus. So you have the Bamilekes and all of those in the Northwest, they have the same origin. When you go down to Littoral, the Bassas, who are the Bantus, and the Sawas with the Bakaris, they have almost the same origin. So I think that the politicians at the time in Southern Cameroons saw themselves being more attached to those in the West Cameroons or French Cameroon. So later on, they decided then to have their own independence with the French Cameroon, and that took place on the 1st of October 1961. So a federal state was being formed, and it had as first president of the federal state Amadou Ahidjo, and Jongo Foncha was the vice president. And each Cameroons, the West and the Southern Cameroons, were being managed by their own government They had their own prime minister, they had their own judicial system, because it's worth mentioning that in the southern Cameroons was common law which was being used, and in the French Cameroon you have the droit civil. So between 1961 and 1972, where we had the federal system in Cameroon, everything seemed really stable, and each side managed its own affairs. And at the end of the day, in the federal system, there were some common things that were being carried out together, and there was peace. But you know, President Amadou Ahidjo had a different vision of things, and I want to believe that because when you look at our constitution, the Constitution of 1972, in its preamble, it mentioned clearly, I think I should read this. I should read this so that we should all understand and know what it states.
And I was actually about coming to the Constitution.
Exactly, it's worth reading it.
So, yeah, please write on.
Okay, so it clearly states that the people of Cameroon, being jealous of their independence, which it acquired because I think I have it in French. Unfortunately, I don't have it in
Cameroon,
English.
they say it's a very bilingual country.
So I don't think.
Meanwhile, while you get to reflect on that,
so I think
kindly proceed.
Let me just proceed. So I think what it simply says there is that Cameroonians believe that we could achieve more development and strive for a more united and free Africa through our own solidarity. And based on this, I think President Ahidjo was struggling to not only unite Cameroonians, but also to look forward to uniting the whole Africa. So I think based on that, that's why he decided to bring all the parties together and say that, okay, look, we are all brothers. I think we should form a united Republic of Cameroon and move on. But unfortunately, after this United Republic of Cameroon was being created, and obviously there were some issues with the whole process, because you can't be asking a part of Cameroon to join the other part, and you're asking everybody to vote, knowing fully well that that part which you are requesting to join and unite with the other part of Cameroon is a minority. So I think the whole electoral process for that was being biased. Nevertheless, we realize that all the problems we are facing today in Cameroon actually is a consequence of the fact that a United States was being created. And you know, later on, it was being changed from a United Republic of Cameroon to the Republic of Cameroon.
Yes.
So it shows that so many English-speaking Cameroonians from Southern Cameroon felt very bad, because they felt like they were being manipulated. They felt like their rights were being violated. And as such, we realized that they now started complaining about so many issues and things that were going on, marginalization and discrimination. So today we realize that we have to all rethink the political system we have today. We have to sit down together. I don't think it's something that can be decided by an individual or any Cameroonian, but I think that we have to sit down as a nation. We have to put on the table Anglophones, we have to put on the table Francophones, that's those from Southern Cameroons and those from the West Cameroons. They have to sit together.
Like you said, it's good to understand your history.
Exactly.
To reshape your future.
Exactly. So they have to sit together and decide what is best. I, for one, I will propose unity. And the reason why I'll propose unity, first of all, based on the fact that we all have the same origins, and I believe that Africa should be united, you see, as a country, according to the second paragraph of our preamble of the Constitution of 1972 and its amendments of 1996 and 2008. And more to that, I am born of an Anglophone and a Francophone parent. So I'll always seek for unity. But I don't think it's only my voice that matters. I think that we have to listen to the Southern Cameroonians who will give their own view. Maybe they might say, no, the best thing is federalism. Federalism, which we had between 1961 and 1972, which we must respect because they have a right to self-determination as provided by the UN Charter and by the UN Declaration of Human Rights.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Asong Michael. To proceed with you, Hilary TITA, you listened to your co-panelist. He spoke of unity, which I would like to capitalize on. Now, a Cameroonian cultural activist that once highlighted that unity is key if Cameroon intends to champion this change, which they are championing for, but she went further to state that to win the race, the opposition will have to get united for them to be able to thrive. Now, as a political analyst, do you share the same opinion? Please, can you unmute your mic, Hilary TITA?
All right. Yes, Sharon, I share the same opinion. I was about to ask the question, to put forth this question, that irrespective of the efforts that civil society and some political parties are making on the ground to make sure that political mobilization keeps improving, keeps growing, there is still this fundamental question of who are we going to vote? Talking about change, what are we struggling to change? A long-serving regime? Are we changing the individuals in the government? What are we changing? I think we understand what we want to change and the reason why we need to change what we want to change. Then we may, I think even the political parties will now get to understand the plight of the Cameroonians. Who are the Cameroonians going to vote? There are 300 plus political parties in Cameroon with independent candidates. Why all of this split in terms of political ideologies? Because I believe that these differences, these different political parties, equally differ in terms of their ideologies. Why this split? Why these disparities in ideologies? Why this much? If the political parties in Cameroon can be reduced to at most 5 political parties, I think Cameroon will once again become a vibrant democracy. This multiplicities of political parties actually makes it difficult for an opposition to win. Because the CPDM, which is an incumbent political party for almost 42 years today, has that incumbent advantage. And I think in the course we may be addressing even the issues of rigging of election, which people used to say that the CPDM rigs election. When you look at it from an analytical point of view, with statistics and facts, then you will end at the point to see that elections in Cameroon, even if they are rigged, it is to a very minor extent. 300 plus political parties in Cameroon within a population of approximately 28 million inhabitants. We expect an opposition to win? No. Now, for the strength of the opposition to match that of the incumbent who already has the financial resource, the human resource, and militants, it will take a coalition. It will take the opposition political parties to lay down their egos, come together, and be able to stand the CPDM, which is the ruling party today, if they actually have the interest of Cameroonians at heart. Because today, I will tell you that if, as a political analyst, I am to tell you which is the best political party to vote for, I would say it is CPDM. The opposition itself, which has very whose militants are not even up to half, that is the opposition all combined, whose militants are not even up to two-thirds of that of the ruling party, they still within themselves, they divide within themselves. You go within an opposition political party like SDF, you see people leave SDF to create a social democratic phase front, which I don't know what that means. Why all this division if actually they have the interests of the Cameroonians at heart? I think the politics in Cameroon, which is the politics of the stomach, the politics of self-interest, the politics of egoism, is what is stopping the opposition to actually win elections in Cameroon. CPDM wins its election. Opposition failed because their ego is even far more than what we have in the ruling party. I believe that a coalition, if they can lay down their ego, come together as one, they will be able to mobilize resources, put together financial resources, human resources. You cannot run elections without money. You cannot run elections without human resources. If you do not have the human resources to monitor elections at election polls, the CPDM will rig your election. They will steal your vote, and you will have nothing to say. You will have no evidence to give as far as that is concerned. I believe that the path to having this change that Cameroonians have long craved for lies in the hands of the opposition as well as in the hands of the citizens. The citizens are playing their part. Let the opposition come together and play their own part as well, so that we can now have the change that we crave for. Yes, I believe that an opposition coming together, all opposition political parties coming together to have, let's even say, two contesting political parties, is already a promising step to acquiring the expected change in Cameroon.
Exactly. I recall one expert once said that change does not start or does not debut on election day, but it is a whole process that starts right from voters registration. And if elections have to be rigged, it is not just rigged on the elections day, but it is a process that actually was planned way before. And we recall that at this time, we have Cameroonians that are being called for to head and put their names on voters registration lists ahead of elections, because that is the only way they can be able to change the narrative across the country, especially that of Cameroon. Now, back to you, Dr. ASONG. You listen to your co-panelists, but then we're saying, or we would like to join our voices with other opposition leaders and Cameroonians when they say that we are the only ones to champion the change that we need. And that aligns eventually with what Hilary TITA was saying. But with the moves on the ground, with Cameroonians being called to register on voters registration lists, with them being called to take part not just in the political affairs of the country, but in every aspect that will lead to the development of Cameroon. As a political, or as a politician, and not just that, but youths taking part in politics, do you think that this move actually would bring about this change, and how feasible is it to actually champion solid change for Cameroon in 2025?
Well, of course, I believe that the move is going to bring about change, but that will entail Cameroonians or the youths to understand why they are making the move.
Yeah,
because I think that's the most important thing. I think the democratic process that will lead to development has actually 3 phases. Mm-hmm. So the first phase is getting registered.
Yes.
That is what is going on now. Mm-hmm. The second phase is going to vote.
Yes, that's
because
true.
That is another issue we are having. I think in the previous elections of 2018, we had about 6.6 million voters, but only 3.6, about 3.6 took part or voted. So we had 3.1, about 3.1.
So what accounts for that?
So that's where the question lies. Why did these 3.1 million Cameroonians didn't vote in the previous elections? So the reasons I've gotten from several Cameroonians on the field is that the first thing is that they believe that there is no need to take part in the elections because the elections are being rigged, in quotes, for them. The second reason or people gave is that they did not see any candidate that actually is capable of bringing the necessary change in Cameroon. So those were the main reasons they actually gave. And you know, another reason is that, you know, with the difficulties Cameroonians are facing and with the psychological trauma, because, you know, having a president for more than 20 years or 25 years, I think causes some sort of mental disorder. It might be very mild, but it causes some sort of mental disorder in the sense that people lose hope. People don't believe that they can really be changed. People believe that no power belongs to a certain class of people and that they will rule till they are tired, and when they are done ruling, their children will take over. So, you know, we are living in that type of environment where the political atmosphere has caused some sort of psychological trauma on its citizens. So those were the reasons they actually gave. So we realized that the second phase of it is that people should go and vote, and people are not going to vote. So mobilization, but also to register, but also mobilization to vote. That's the second phase. Now, I think that to resolve the issue of the second phase is that if there is a candidate that can bring hope, that can bring new expectations onto Cameroonians, because most Cameroonians, they believe that even those in the opposition are in one way or the other collaborating with the ruling power, or they are receiving some sort of favors which actually makes them not to do what they have to do as the opposition and actually reflect the type of candidate or president that will be required to bring change. As I earlier on said, Cameroon is going through a lot today. We have a government that lavishes our money. They spend exaggeratedly. We have a government that has encouraged corruption. Be it in every sector, there is corruption. We have a government that has made things extremely difficult with the high cost of living and all the like, and we see them living very, very luxurious lives. So the opposition, of course, will have to bring a candidate that will be able to show to Cameroonians that he will be there not for his own interests or the interest of those who are ruling with him, but that he will be there for the interest of the Cameroonian population. And that's why a political party today, it will be very difficult for a political party today to win, because most political parties enshrine all those principles: tribalism, favoritism, corruption, nepotism. Because, of course, if a particular political party wins, he has to grant favors to those who actually are in the political party before he thinks about those who are outside. And that's the reason why I decided to go in as an independent candidate, because I don't want to be controlled by anybody. I want to be independent, autonomous, and work for the interest of every Cameroonian and not for those who are around me or those whom I know. So this being said, you realize that if we are able to bring forth that type of candidate that will be able to show justice, hard work, integrity, hope, and assurance for future generations, then I think that those 3.1, almost half, who did not take part in the elections will stand up and go and vote, including those who just registered. Now, the third phase is that after the elections are being proclaimed, Cameroonians must know, and this I repeat, they must know, that the development of a country is not in the hands of a person. The development of a country is in the hands of the population.
And that leads to balance of power. It's actually necessary.
Exactly. So the leader, who is the president, and as Article 2 of the Constitution says, sovereignty belongs to the population, but it is exercised by the executive and the parliament. So we must know, every citizen must know, that the development of Cameroon today is not in the hands of individuals, but they have a responsibility to play, because the leader will have a vision, but now the mission, to accomplish the vision will require that everybody should hold hands together, work together with the same mindset, with the same objectives, so that together, collectively, with the little each and everyone will bring in, we shall be able to bring about that change. Because today Cameroonians will actually will abandon everything into the hands of those who are ruling, that they should do it. But that can't be done, and that's why today we are not developed, because we think that it can only be done by a group of people. But no, it's something that we must all participate together. It's true we might have differences. It's true that yesterday some rule poorly, but at the same time, the new leader who will take over Cameroon must know that he will be forced to work with everybody, even those who once upon a time were those who actually instigated the type of political system that is bringing all the difficulties we have today. So we must put that in mind, that even after elections, no matter the outcome, we shouldn't have that spirit of saying that no, our candidate did not win, so we are going to wish the other candidate failure. And that's what we're having today, and it's been seen in every sector, whether it be in football, Feka food, or in other institutions, be medical, or I don't know, economic. Each time a group of people don't have their candidate win, they obviously want the other candidate to fail. But that's not the way it should move. Democracy, it's all about working together. It's true we vote our leaders, but those with majority win. But that does not make us enemies. We should know that we still remain one, and everything we are doing is for the development of our country. And if we hold hands together, then certainly we'll be able to take Cameroon to the next level, which we all desire. And that change which we all desire is going to be something material.
Absolutely, and you evoked the issue of the constitution, of course, the electoral law that governs Cameroon. And now, Hilary, listen to your co-panelists. Given the fact that Cameroon is not supposed to be in the hands of a particular individual, we've mentioned in our previous editions that there should be a balance of power for the development of a country to actually emerge. Now, as a political scientist and a civil society leader, what's your take on that? And do you see these actually feasible in the Cameroonian context?
It is feasible in the Cameroonian context on the papers. But when you go to the field, the reality turns to be something else.
So, Hilary, I beg your pardon, sorry to interject, but then if the reality is not positive on the ground, how can Cameroonians, or say the stakeholders involved, ensure that they revamp this to ensure that it actually materializes? Because we are looking at the development of Cameroon.
I think the laws, there are laws already put in place to make sure that the regional balance is being struck. There are laws that are put in place, at least taking into consideration the diversities of Cameroonians, both in terms of English-speaking and French-speaking, and both in terms of our indigenous heritages, cultural heritages. So I think that the issue we have in Cameroon today is at the level of implementation, and this implementation is poor because of poor checks and balance mechanisms. If Cameroon can establish a good checks and balance mechanism to make sure that once you're given the power to exercise a particular activity, to realize a particular project, there should be someone from behind to check you up. Well, if you want to look at it from a macro perspective, the different arms of the government, that's the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive, we should have some degree of independence of these different arms, not the kind of dominance that the executive is exercising on the other arms of the government in Cameroon. I think for us to start talking about development, you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you give power to someone and you do not control that power, there is a tendency that they can abuse that power. For development to strive in Cameroon, from the macro level, the executive arm, which constitutes the president, the ministers, and the rest, should be checked to make sure that projects that they envisage for a financial year should be realized. For development to be talked upon in Cameroon, to be thought upon in Cameroon, or to be effective, of course, there is development. It may only be at a slow pace, but there is development. At least we have several developmental projects. We cannot say we are the same as we were in 1990s, or we are the same we were in 2010. For development to be effective, let there be independence in terms of the judicial arm, the legislative arm, and the executive arm in Cameroon. The constitution as well should be reviewed. It gives a lot of power to the head of state, and because of that so much power, like I mentioned before, absolute power corrupts absolutely. There is this possibility of the head of state deciding who should be minister today and when to take off that minister. Who should be the High Court judge? He decides who should be the Constitutional Council head. These are institutions that are supposed to rather check on the president to make sure that he is actually exercising his mandate. But with this so much power embedded or given to the president, it becomes difficult for the judiciary to function independently. The idea is not actually to police individuals. The idea is that inherently human beings, once given power, there is that tendency to abuse power. So there should be some check, someone to check you from behind to make sure that you don't go beyond your area of jurisdiction. You don't act less than the expectation or beyond the expectation. You come down to the local levels. The politics in Cameroon, which is generally politics of the stomach, once someone is given a post of responsibility, he sees it as a mining field to mine out the resources of Cameroon for their personal interest. It becomes difficult. The problem of development in Cameroon is not just from the presidency. The president may be doing his best to appoint people and give them posts of responsibilities. These same Cameroonians or the people now feel, when they feel in their responsibility, now seem as if it is the issue of A2D alone. Development in Cameroon will start, or effective development in Cameroon will start from a change of mindset, that you will know that productivity counts as an individual, that if I am given this post of responsibility, let me get to work and start working for the interest of the nation, not for my own personal interest. You should not be appointed minister and you see it as a position where you will now give instructions for those who are controlling ECO, NOMA, those who are controlling ENAM to maybe bring in your family members. That is not what we are advocating for. When we have people being given strict definition of their area of jurisdiction, we will have some degree of efficiency. When we look at Max Weber, a model of bureaucracy, people should be specialized in the things that they are given, the tasks that they are given to do. They shouldn't cross beyond their tasks and start getting into the affairs of other institutions. If we have this independence and with a strong checks and balance mechanism, I believe that the development in Cameroon will definitely come. And of course, we can only have this mechanism when we have the leaders at the top put in place these mechanisms. And today we are talking about elections. The population who have the power to discipline politicians through the polling box, they have the responsibility today to either harness it or leave it, and we will continue to leave the status quo. I believe that development, effective development in Cameroon it's possible if we have this checks and balance mechanism put in place to check and make sure that people who are given responsibilities carry them out effectively.
It's all about taking up responsibilities and, of course, carrying out them effectively. Now, we we are at a point where Cameroon, like we mentioned in our preamble, is less than a year to go for Cameroonians to head to the ballot box and, of course, cast their ballots in what's going to determine their future. Now, Dr. Asong, aside from the upcoming presidential elections or general elections are built for 2025, what other aspects, like we mentioned, not just these elections, but Cameroon might likely see what we call a socio-political or economic change after 2025. And now, aside elections, what other sectors can actually champion for change in the country?
Well, what I would like to say is that change can only come through the ballot box, because the political system affects everything. Yes. And politics is all about development. It's all about putting in place mechanisms to actually stimulate growth. And when we are talking about stimulating growth and development, we're talking about stimulating growth and development in sectors such as the economy, such as health, such as education, social, cultural, infrastructure, and every other thing. So everything starts from there. So it's from the ballot box that will have the right candidate that will be able to put in place policies that will actually incite and stimulate growth in every other sector. So what will I say apart from the ballot box Cameroonians could do? We know that we have our governmental institutions and we also have the civil society. So the civil society is made up of professional groups, is made up of businessmen and women, yes. And I think that human rights activists, and I think that this is the moment where they should be more active than ever. So for example, when we talk about the Cameroon Bar Association, we have been seeing what they have been doing when it concerns the violation of human rights, when it concerns talking about the rule of law, so that the rights of Cameroonians should be respected, whether it be before institutions or even for the upcoming elections. We talk about the human rights organizations and groups who are actually advocating, because today there's a lot of violence going on in Cameroon, whether it be due to the Anglophone crisis that has led to humanitarian crisis, many English-speaking Cameroonians being displaced towards Nigeria and towards French Cameroon, so many military men who have lost their lives, and their wives, widows, and children's orphans. We have civilians who have lost their lives. On this other side, we have high rates of femicides. I think each day there are actors, civil society actors, who are actually combating those things and try to make sure that the basic human rights for every Cameroonian are being respected. Human rights are fundamental to everybody, and for a country to develop, people must have those basic rights being granted to them so that they could be more productive for their own society. So I think that's what the civil society has to do, whether it be the medical council or the council of pharmacists and the rest. So they have to all join hands together. Each and every one will have to play his own role, because the government will put in place policies, but at the end of the day, we need those with the knowledge, competence, and technical know-how to chip in their own efforts, so that the policies which are being put in place will be able to stimulate growth. As I earlier on said, every Cameroonian should bear in mind that change is not something for a group of people.
Yeah, it's a collective
It's a collective thing. So no matter who takes over in 2025, Cameroonians should be ready to work hand in hand. And I think that that is what we should put in our minds. We should be more matured, and each and every one should put together his efforts, his competence, his qualities, so that will be able to bring up and stimulate growth.
It's all about collective effort. Dr. Asong, to conclude today's edition of the program, I would channel this next question, or last question for today, to you, Hilary TITA. Away from a political point of view, to Cameroonians, what is the way forward from the view of a civil society leader?
there is this quote that says that when good people fail to elect good leaders, wrong people will elect bad leaders. There is always that possibility or that opportunity to effect change, either at the local level or at the national level, either at your own little job site that you are working there, either at your own educational institution, just as a class prefect. There is always that opportunity for you to effect change. Today we are talking about elections in Cameroon, and this is an opportunity to effect change at the national level. And this change, this opportunity will only come 7 years after. The fundamental questions still come. Have Cameroonians registered to prepare themselves to be part of these 2025 elections? I so much doubt that the crisis we face in Cameroon can be adequately addressed if we have the right people on seat. Even the crisis in the northwest and southwest region of Cameroon, this crisis can be addressed if we have the right people on seat. We will have people with different approaches, different from the status quo that we already have.
Yeah, you should think of wrapping up, Hilary, TITA.
Okay.
Yeah, just a few seconds. Please kindly wrap up.
Okay. All right. Yes, I just wish to say that this is a golden opportunity for Cameroonians to harness as far as 2025 elections are concerned. If you are unable to change, if Cameroonians are unable to change the presidency today, let them vote the right people to manage their local collectivities, their local councils, that's the municipal councils, the regional councils. Let them elect the right people to be in the parliament. I want to imagine a parliament with at least 50 or 60 parliamentarians from the opposition political parties. Then I think that the change, if it is not effected in 2025, then it must have already started from somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilary, TITA, for your contribution, your political scientist. And I equally say thank you, Dr. ASONG, for your insightful contribution on today's edition of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, like it does says, you listen to our co-panelists. Of course, today we were discussing about, or asking the question if, of course, the upcoming elections are due for 2025 could bring about the expected change in Cameroon. You listen to a lot, but unfortunately, we're not able to exhaust today's topic. Meanwhile, hoping that our next edition we shall be able to focus on these. Ladies and gentlemen, it's on that note that we draw down the curtains of today's edition of the program. But then, programs continue over your Pan-African channel for You Media Africa. Bye-bye.